Hello and welcome to my final project lesson plan. I'm John Hendricksey and I'll be presenting what I plan to do going forward. The rationale and background. This unit is going to be more of a project-based learning model, so the lesson is actually more of like a mini unit that will take 5 to 7 days. It's for a U.S. history class, which is 11th grade at my school. The whole point of the lesson is for a study of civil rights, but more importantly, to encourage empathy within my students. The lesson is going to focus on looking at minority groups in Grand Rapids. My school is a very homogeneous school. Because of that, many of my students lack experience with other people and cultures. And I feel that in a more globalized world, it's important for us to empathize with those of different backgrounds, ethnicities, and faiths. And I believe this because I think this is required to further God's kingdom, which is our mission. So my objectives are that students will be able to explain a minority culture within the greater Grand Rapids area. Students will be able to present their findings of the minority group using technology. And students will develop a deepened understanding of American culture and the struggle for civil rights by many of these people today and throughout U.S. history. Standards, these are the 4 standards I highlighted from the ISTE and METS. So students will develop a cultural understanding and global awareness by engaging with learners of other cultures. Students will process data and report results. Students will understand and use technology systems. And students will distinguish between fact, opinion, point of view, and inference, which is very important in the high school history classroom. Materials needed. Every student will need a Chromebook. These are provided by my school, so that will not be a problem. Students will need a personal device, so a phone or tablet, which they all have. Internet access, which again, my school provides, and the vast majority of students have access at home. Google Apps, and specifically Google Slides, and then the Gale database, which is provided by my school's media center. So the introduction of the lesson, students will be introduced to the lesson with a brief discussion of the racial and ethnic makeup of Grand Rapids. I want to launch this in class through the Grand Rapids Museum. Where did it go? Here we go. Okay, there's a current museum at the Grand Rapids a current exhibit, at the Grand Rapids Public Museum called Newcomers, the People of This Place. It's about 45 ethnic groups that now call West Michigan their home. So it shows that Grand Rapids is indeed a melting pot like America. So I'll read over this. It talks about different cultures, how they came to Grand Rapids, when they settled Grand Rapids, industries they've gone into in Grand Rapids, and how they've really served the Grand Rapids community. My hope is to open a lot of eyes as to all the different ethnicities and cultures and religions in Grand Rapids, but to also get students to start thinking about ideas for the project through internet-based research. Students will also look at a history of the civil rights movement in America, and I'll do this through ushistory.org, so students can look at this on their Chromebooks in class, and they can look at the museum website as well on their Chromebooks, or I could assign this for reading the night before. There's many dates on this website in this timeline. I will have students focus on only a small number of dates that I will select ahead of time, and again, I could assign this the night before. So students get a general idea of how this is focusing on African Americans, about how civil rights movements develop and how they're dealt with, both in the community and politically by our government. And then students will look at modern civil rights issues, from the issues in Ferguson, Missouri recently to the very current refugee debate. And we'll discuss what life has become for many Muslims in America. And I want to do that because at the end of last week, CNN published this article, which is about threats, harassment, vandalism at mosques in America, which is very, very, very sad, because it's clear some people are taking revenge for attacks in California or maybe even in Paris by radical organizations and trying to hurt the communities and organizations of innocent people around the United States. So there have been 63 incidents in the U.S. so far this year, more than any other year. And this article discusses that. So again, I'll have students look at this as sort of an introduction, and they could do this even the night before the lesson as well. Okay, the transition. After doing that, at the introduction, students will be asked to choose a minority group in Grand Rapids that they want to study. Students will be in groups of 4. I'll provide a slide with options of minority groups in Grand Rapids. Once they pick their group, they'll begin researching their minority group through the Gale database, which again is a technology tool that I'm sure everyone is familiar with, and it's available on our school's website. And the slide I'm going to show my students, let me pull it up right now. So I like this because on the my left, your right, as you're viewing this, it shows Michigan and it shows Kent County, and the ancestry with largest population in Kent County is green, so it's Dutch. And my students will get a kick out of this because we're basically all Dutch Reformed. However, through Wordle, I created this to the right, which discusses different faiths, some faith students may not even heard of, and minority and racial groups that make up Grand Rapids that are many times forgotten about or not discussed or not thought of, but they make up a big part of our community, and I think it's important for us to understand them in order to empathize with them. Okay. Activities. Guided research through the introduction and databases. Students will have to pinpoint a place that they can physically interact with a minority group, church, community center, Grand Rapids event, etc. Students will have to capture this interaction through their personal device. Students will use their material learned through research and their site visit to create a brief Google slide presentation on their minority group. So here's a brief modeled example. Muslims in Grand Rapids, they're a minority in Grand Rapids. There are around 20,000 Muslims in the Grand Rapids area. There are 4 mosques and community centers where Muslims come for worship, fellowship, and community. The majority of Muslims in Grand Rapids are from Bosnia, or the former Yugoslavia. This is a Bosnian mosque that I went to visit. It's on East Paris Avenue in Southeast Grand Rapids. And I found out that the majority of Bosnians in Grand Rapids who predominantly worship at this mosque came here as refugees from the Yugoslavian Civil War in the 1990s, which was interesting. Other Bosnians have since followed to join their families here and come for the liberties offered in America and created great lives here. I was also able to witness a call to prayer. I think I need to hit present for this to work. Here we go. This was interesting to view for a few reasons. As a Christian, I could appreciate the holiness and the sense of holiness I felt during this call to prayer, and there was also a message from the imam. a very good message. But also I noticed a diverse group of people, not just Bosnians coming here to pray, Caucasians, Somalis, Indians, Pakistani, a very, very diverse melting pot, which again adds a new a light and sort of scope on things for the Grand Rapids area. Lastly, I was able to have a discussion with a lot of them, and I realized that many of them are upset that they're being tied or connected with racial or radical terrorists like ISIS. I talked to a student who was recently at MSU, and he heard, and his now wife heard many slurs on campus while they were there. And they're forced to stand up daily to some in the public who are misguided. The sign in the bottom corner is what they've lined the street with outside their church, proclaiming Islam is peace, true believers don't kill, with the American flag on top. Clearly trying to show the Grand Rapids area that they are caring people, loving people, and they just want to worship freely or exercise their First Amendment rights without being persecuted. And finishing up here, so students are going to go out into the community and observe something like I just did and present this on the Google Slides. Really, all I want them to do is show a clear understanding of the minority group and discuss any discrimination or hardships they may face in our society. And they must also address if their civil rights, their minority group civil rights are being protected, or if they feel they're being threatened, like some of the Muslims in our community feel. And then my assessment, it's 20 points for the bottom four categories: research, media, empathy, and professionalism. I don't think I need to read all of those things, but it'll be out of 80 points. That's all. I hope you enjoyed. Thank you.